Hello, this is Math 0018, Section 2.5. Today we're going to be looking at translating verbal expressions into variable expressions. So first of all, we're going to look at some of the main phrases that tell you about the different operations. And we're going to start with addition. And so this is a main skill that you need to know that you'll see throughout all of your mathematics courses to be able to translate from an English sentence or phrase into a mathematical expression. So here are our phrases for addition. Added to, which that goes, look at the order here. 6 added to y. Well, since the 6 is added to the y, when you write it, the y has to come first. Y plus 6, okay? So there the order flips. So be careful about that, okay? Now, look at the next one, 8 more than x, same thing. If you want 8 more than x, you have to have the x first, and x plus 8. So on that one, the order also flips. The next phrase, the sum of x and z, that goes right in order, okay? T increased by 9, same order, t plus 9. The total of 5 and d, same order, 5 plus d, and plus b plus 17, same order. So just the first two, added to and more than, those two phrases, the order flips when you're doing the translating. Now let's look at subtraction, because with addition the order doesn't make that much of a difference technically, but you may get marked wrong on a quiz if they want to just see the translation. With subtraction, if you write it in the wrong order, it is totally wrong, because subtraction is not commutative. You can't flip it and have the same problem. So here we're going to look at minus. X minus 2 goes right in order. X minus 2, no big deal. Now less than, that one is tricky, okay? So you got to be careful there. 7 less than t. If you want 7 less than t, you have to take the 7 away from the t. So that, once again, we're talking about the order flips, okay? So whenever you see less than, whatever's right in front of those two words, it goes to the end and you subtract it. Now, if it's just less, that's a different setup there. 7 less t goes right in order. 7 minus t, because you want 7 with the t taken away, less the t, okay? Now, subtracted from also flips. 5 subtracted from d. So if you want to subtract it from the d has to go first. So once again, this is another one where the order flips, okay? Decreased by, that goes right in order. M decreased by 3, M minus 3. The difference between goes right in order. The difference between y and 4, y minus 4. So the two operation phrases for subtraction where it flips are less than and subtracted from. So you want to be careful that when you see those that you make sure you know the order flips. Now multiplication, our keywords here are times. So 10 times t is just 10t. Of tells you to multiply, so 1/2 of x would be 1/2 times x. The product of, product is the main word there, okay? Whenever you see the word product, that's multiplication. So the product of y and z would be y times z. Multiplied by, that's pretty obvious. B multiplied by 11. You can do b times 11 or 11 times b. That doesn't really matter. And twice is a special case. That means it's always times 2. Okay? So twice n would be 2 times n. Now, excuse me, the operation phrases for division are divided by. So x divided by 12, and it's usually going to be easier. I know how much some of you dislike fractions, but if you actually write it as a fraction when you're translating with division, it's much easier to see where the terms go, okay? Then you don't have to put in any extra parentheses. So you have x divided by 12, x over 12. The quotient, that's probably the main word that you're going to see for division. Quotient of y and z. Wherever you see the and, that's what splits up the two parts of the fraction. Y and is your division sign, z, okay? And the ratio of t to 9, you'll very rarely see that, but you will sometimes see ratio as a division word, and it would be t over 9. And the last operation that we're dealing with here would be for different powers. The square of something is always means that it's to the second power. So the square of x would be x squared. And cube is to the third power. Okay, so the cube of a would be a to the third, or a cubed. All right, so let's look at translating these phrases into variable expressions. So number 1 says a number divided by 10. Now, there's two things you need to see here. First of all, our operation divided by, and they didn't give us a variable. They just said a number. So anywhere that you see a number or the number, that is where it is going to be your variable. Okay, so that's what that means. It's going to be equal to your variable. Now, some people like to use n for number. I always use x, but it doesn't matter. You can use the first letter of your name. I don't care. So a number divided by 10, we're dividing, so I'm going to use x divided by 10. So x over 10. And that's all you have to do. Just translate it. All right, look at number 2. A less than 17. So our key phrase there is less than. So remember, whenever you see those two words, whatever's in front of those two words less than, that goes at the back and you subtract it. So we want A less than 17 because we have to take the A away from the 17. So it would just be 17 minus A. Now, the next one, we've got a little bit more involved of an expression. B decreased by the product of 2 and B. So, they've given us our variable B, okay? We have the keyword or key phrase decreased by, and we also have product. So, remember, decreased by is subtraction, and product is multiplication. So, we've got subtraction and multiplication. So, if you want B decreased by something, you're going to start with B and minus because we're going to decrease it by whatever comes next. Now, what's next is the product of 2 and B. Remember, product is multiplication, so we want the multiplication of 2 and B. That can just simply be written as 2B. Now, you could also put 2 and then say parentheses B, or 2 and the multiplication dot B, but this is the simplest form because when you have 2B just written there by itself, it's understood to be multiplication. So they're going to be looking for the simplest expression. Okay, that's the best. All right, so here's some more. This next one is a little bit harder because you have to be careful about the order of the words. It says 5 times the sum of a number and 2. So most people are like, okay, 5 times, okay, and then they see sum, and so they're like 5 times x, which is wrong. Okay, what you need to see here is you've got 5 times the sum. Well, a sum is an operation, and to have a sum you have to have at least two things to add together. So when you see 5 times the sum, here's what I want you to picture in your head. 5 and parentheses, because you have to multiply by that whole sum. So if it had said 5 times the difference, you'd have 5 parentheses. 5 times the product, 5 parentheses. 5 times the quotient, 5 parentheses. So anytime that you multiply times another operation, times the sum, times the product, times the difference, times the quotient, you're always going to have parentheses there for around that second operation. So when you see those first 4 words, 5 times the sum, you want to picture in your head 5 and parentheses. Then worry about what goes in the parentheses. So inside the parentheses, we need to write the sum of a number and 2. Remember, sum is addition. So we're going to have the addition of a number, which could be x, and 2. Now, so that's your expression, 5 parentheses x plus 2. And if you don't have the parentheses there, it's wrong. So you have to be very careful about that. Okay? Now, here's your gold star question for the day. What property would you use if you were asked to simplify that expression? Distributive, right, because you would have to distribute the 5 to both of those terms. Okay, so just little things to kind of remember as you're going along. Number 5, the quotient of twice a number and 14. Okay, so we've got quotient, And we also have twice. So the main thing we're talking about here is a quotient. So that's a fraction, okay? That's division. So what you want to see here is whenever we're talking about a quotient, we have a quotient of blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And is where your division sign is going to go, okay? So whatever comes before the division, before the word and, that's going on top, and whatever comes after and, that goes on the bottom. So the quotient of twice a number, remember twice a number, twice means 2 times. So 2 times a number, 2x, that goes on top, and 14. The 14 is going to go on the bottom. So the key to doing these verbal expressions and translating is breaking it down into little problems, okay? Like on number 4, we did the first 4 words, 5 times the sum, 5 parentheses. Then worry about what goes into the parentheses, the sum of a number and 2, okay? Same thing here. We knew we needed a quotient, so set up your fraction bar. And then whatever comes before the word and, you write that on top, twice a number, 2x. And then whatever's after and goes on the bottom, 14. So break it down into little problems, and that way it makes it a lot easier to be able to translate. So look at number 6, a number decreased by 8. So remember, decreased by is subtraction, and that doesn't flip in order, it just goes right in order. So we have a number, that's x, decreased by 8. So just subtraction there. Okay? All right, so here's some for you to try. The sum of twice a number and 5. Now, this one is similar to the one we did earlier, but, oh, and I forgot to tell you to pause the video and try these on your own, okay? And then go back and start it up again. This is different from the one we did earlier because before it was twice or 5 times the sum, but now it's the sum of twice a number and 5. So the main operation here is sum. So go ahead and put a plus sign because you know you have, that's the main thing, the sum of blah, blah, blah and 5. And in this case, the and goes back to, in all these problems, the word and doesn't always mean plus, it means whatever the main operation is. In this case it is a plus sign, but on the one we just did a few minutes ago it was a quotient, so that's where a division sign goes. So the word and goes back to your main operation, okay? So we have to put twice a number on the first side of the plus sign. So twice, remember, is 2 times. So that would be twice a number, 2 times x, the sum of that, and 5. So you should have gotten 2x plus 5. All right, number 2. 4 times the difference between a number and 7. Okay, so your keywords here are times and difference. Okay, now this is similar to one we did earlier where we were multiplying by another operation. 4 times the difference. So it's 4 times an operation. So you have to have 4 and parentheses to show that you're multiplying by the whole difference. That whole difference has to be in parentheses there. Okay? Now, so that's the first 4 words, 4 times the difference. Now we have to figure out what's going in the parentheses. We need to write the difference between a number and 7. So remember, and goes back to your operation, okay? So difference is subtraction between a number, x, and 7, okay? All right, so be careful because on number 2, if you don't have those parentheses there, it's wrong. So you have to be real careful on that. Number 3 says 6 less than 8 times c. Okay, so we have less than. So remember, whatever's in front of that word, those 2 words less than, that has to go at the end, and we subtract it every single time, forever and ever. Amen. Always. Okay, so 6 less than goes to the end. That takes care of the first part. So we want it to be less than 8 times c. So you just write 8c, 8 times c. So as long as you know that the 6 goes to the end, that one's not that bad. But a lot of people get started off on the wrong foot at the very beginning by saying 6 minus. So remember, less than, the order flips. Okay? All right, number 4. 9 times the square of a number. So we have times, and we also have square. It's the first time we've seen one with a power. Okay? So we want to multiply 9 times the square of a number. So if we let our number be x, then the square of that number would be x squared. So 9x squared. Okay? And you don't need any extra parentheses or multiplication dots or anything. Just keep it very simple. Okay? Look at number 5. The product of 3 and a number added to 10. Okay, so this one's a little tricky because you have to be very careful here. We have the product, and remember it's the product of something and something else. Okay, so we have the product of 3 and, okay, remember that goes back to your multiplication part, a number. And then that's added to 10. So here's the thing. This whole first part, the product of 3 and a number, is added to 10. So 10 has to go first. That's what's weird, okay? So you have to really be careful and break it down. So we're kind of starting with the end here because it's added to 10. We're going to start with 10, okay? And so it's being added to that. So we have 10 plus, and what we're adding to it is the product of 3 and a number. Well, remember product is multiplication. So we're going to have 3 times a number. So 3x. Okay, that one's kind of tricky, so be really careful on that one. All right, number 6, 7 subtracted from twice a number. Okay, so we have two phrases here, subtracted from and twice. Okay, now if 7 is subtracted from something, you have to put minus 7 because you're subtracting the 7 from something. Okay, and what we're subtracting it from is twice a number. So twice a number would just be 2x. So just remember, and a lot of times it's all in the way you read it. So like if you can emphasize it to where it almost sounds like you're crazy, like 7 subtracted from twice a number, then that'll make it a lot easier. All right, I think there's 2 more. Yep. 9 times the difference between a number and 45. So here's your here's your key words. We have times, we have difference, and we also have and, which helps a lot. Okay? Sorry, I was laughing because my husband just came in and my dog is now in here with me while I'm making this video. So we'll see what happens. Okay, so 9 times the difference. That's that same idea again where you're multiplying times another operation. So we're going to put 9 and parentheses, okay, so that we can have 9 times the difference. So difference is subtraction, okay, and we want the subtraction between a number and 45. So a number we can just write x, and 45 we just write 45. So you'd have 9 and then parentheses x minus 45. Okay, number 8. I think this is the last one. The quotient of 3 and the total of 7 and a number. All right, what the heck? That's a lot of stuff. We have the quotient, okay, and the total, and here's and, which will help us some, okay. So the main operation here is the quotient. That's the main thing. So we're going to set up a fraction bar. Now, here's what you need to see. The quotient, you have the quotient of 3 and that first and goes back to the quotient. So that's what separates the top and the bottom of your fraction is that first word and, okay? And then the second and, that goes back to total, okay? So it always goes back to the operation that's right before the word and comes up, okay? So we have the quotient of 3, so the only thing that goes on top is just 3. And that's our division bar. So that's where that quotient part comes in. Okay. I know I've got arrows everywhere. Sorry. Okay. And then on the bottom, we want to write the total of 7 and a number. So total is addition. Okay. And it goes right in order. 7 and a number. So that's the quotient of 3 and the total of 7 and a number. So the and is so important in this problem because you've got 2 of them, but they refer to 2 totally different operations. So you have to be really careful there. Just remember the first and goes with the first operation with the quotient. So be careful. Okay? And that should just about do it for 2.5. Yep.